Yet here we are, one day later, and Kostyuk has
Oh,
sent her
and of
packing a
things to
victory
come.
that carries serious weight. Amanda Anisimova enjoyed her status as the top American for what felt like 5 minutes before her Brisbane campaign imploded. Getting crushed by Marta Kostyuk in the second round didn't just hurt, it gift-wrapped the top spot and mailed it right back to Coco Gauff on a silver platter. The standings have shuffled once more, delivering a cruel twist of fate to Anisimova, seeing her peak ranking vanish even quicker than she earned it. So I have to ask the big question. Does this lightning-fast ascent and descent prove the point system is just noise? Or does it expose that she wasn't quite prepared for the heavy crown of being America's #1? Sound off in the comments, because this scenario has become far more chaotic than any of us predicted. Allow me to paint the picture, because the storyline here is simply mouthwatering. Anisimova had freshly surpassed Coco Gauff in the global standings, claiming the title of highest-ranked American woman for the very first time. This was monumental, a legacy-making instant that usually sparks endless celebration and deep analysis as a massive leap forward. She hit a personal best at world #3, taking her seat at the table among the absolute royalty of the sport. The headlines were practically writing themselves. From her courageous return after a mental health hiatus to a stellar 2025 run, culminating in her dominance over the American field. Let me tell you, if this foreshadows the future, we are in for a ride. Then she stepped onto the Brisbane hardcourts seeded second, only to get thoroughly dismantled by Marta Kostyuk, 6-4, 6-3. In a flash, that top national spot she held for barely a week evaporated, sliding right back to Gauff without Coco having to lift a finger. Gauff had already nosed ahead in the live projections, but Anisimova's defeat sealed the deal in ink. That is simply exquisite technique on the backhand side from Anisimova. Scrambling defense there, but it was all for naught. The timing of this collapse is truly savage. With absolutely no points to defend this week, the door was wide open for her to pad her lead and entrench herself at the summit. As the second seed at this 500-level event, she had a golden ticket to bag 500 points and put some real distance between her and Gauff. Rather than seizing the moment, she burned out. She bowed out in the third round, seeing her reign as America's best dry up quicker than rain in the outback, while the magnificent Kostyuk surged into the quarters. Man, what a victory that was. Taking down the third seed, Anisimova, who had looked absolutely electric just the night prior. Jump ahead 24 hours though, and Kostyuk has shown her the exit door a triumph with massive implications. We need to dissect the actual gameplay, because this wasn't a gritty three-set war where Anisimova went down swinging. This was a straight sets drubbing, where she was second best from the first ball to the last. Kostyuk dictated the tempo, while Anisimova looked lost, unable to find her groove. The 6-4, 6-3 scoreline betrays a player unprepared for the spotlight. The burden of carrying that #2 seeding. The crushing weight of being the freshly crowned American queen, and the glare of the cameras that track you when you hit a personal best. It looked like too much for her to handle, and Kostyuk capitalized ruthlessly. To give credit where it's due, Anisimova actually kicked off Brisbane with fire. She completely dismantled Kimberly Birrell 6-1, 6-3 in her Wednesday opener. She appeared laser-focused and poised to prove her new status was no fluke. Then she ran into the Kostyuk wall, and all that forward motion just evaporated. That is, life on the Pro Tour, you are only celebrated for your latest win, and the leaderboard can invert in one afternoon. While all this went down, Coco Gauff was busy at the United Cup, grinding out results and banking points without the heavy scrutiny Anisimova dealt with in Brisbane. Now, the United Cup is a tricky beast. The scoring system there is a labyrinth. Points are awarded based on who you beat and how deep your squad goes in the bracket. Gauff's 2,025 points expired this week, which was the primary reason she slipped behind Anisimova in the first place. She sat at 6,273 points against Anisimova's 6,287. That tiny 14-point gap was all it took to change the guard and spark this entire saga. However, Gauff kept her head down, kept fighting, and clawed those points right back. She did suffer a defeat against Spain's Jessica Buzas-Monero during the round-robin stage. It is the kind of defeat that usually fades from memory within weeks, a mere blip on the radar. Yet, she balanced the scales by taking down Argentina's Solana Sierra and scoring a massive quarterfinal victory over Greece's powerhouse, Maria Sakkari. Knocking out Sakkari was not just a morale booster. It was a strategic masterstroke because the Greek star represents a high-caliber rival, and that triumph injected enough ranking points to vault Gauff back past Anisimova on the live leaderboards, well before the Brisbane disaster sealed the deal. with Team USA storming their way into the Do Next Centennial United Cup semifinals. Gauff finds herself with a golden ticket to rack up even more points and widen the gap between her and her compatriot. Each time she steps onto the court and claims a win, the math gets uglier for Anisimova, making the climb back to the summit increasingly steep. You honestly could not script a more poetic twist of fate if you tried. Anisimova held all the cards for securing her lead, entering a WTA 500 tournament as the second seed with a draw that looked like a walk in the park. On the flip side, Gauff was navigating the chaos of the United Cup's team dynamics and its notoriously complex scoring intricacies. Against all odds, Gauff reclaimed the throne simply by handling business, while Anisimova buckled under the crushing weight of her newfound status. We need to dive into the real implications of this leaderboard shuffle, because the stakes go far beyond ego or flying the flag. Though, let us be real, those are huge drivers in American tennis culture. The upcoming WTA list locks in the seeds for the Australian Open, the season's inaugural Grand Slam kicking off on January 18th. Everyone anticipates both Gauff and Anisimova to arrive in Melbourne as serious threats for the trophy, making their seeding placement critical for determining who stands in their way on the road to glory. But here is the fascinating kicker. This entire tussle for supremacy between Gauff and Anisimova will not change a single thing about their draws down under. They occupy the exact same seeding tier as numbers 3 and 4, meaning they are destined to land in the same bracket half as either the top-ranked Aryna Sabalenka or the number 2 powerhouse Iga Swiatek. Whether Gauff sits at 3 and Anisimova at 4, or you flip the script, the grim reality remains identical. To lift that trophy, they have to go through one of the planet's absolute titans before even reaching the final match. Simply put, all the noise and hysteria surrounding the top American spot has zero effect on their Grand Slam destiny. We are looking at a battle for vanity with absolutely no strategic payoff for the Melbourne draw. However, dismissing the psychological impact would be a mistake, because the mental game is everything here. Wearing the crown of American #1 invites a storm of expectations, media glare, and a suffocating pressure that can break even the talented. Anisimova just received a brutal lesson that sitting on the throne is far more agonizing than it appears from the outside. She held the title for barely a week, marched into Brisbane with a target on her back, and instantly collapsed under the spotlight. It sends a worrying signal for a player who claims to be rising to the elite tier and hunting for major championships. In contrast, Gauff has lived in this pressure cooker for years, serving as the poster child for American women's tennis since her early teens. She has navigated the crushing weight of hype, the microscopic scrutiny, and the endless comparisons to legends of the past. For her, this high-stakes environment is just another Tuesday. So, when the rankings corrected themselves, it likely felt less like a victory lap and more like the universe returning to its natural state. She has walked this path, she knows the terrain, and she has the Grand Slam silverware to prove she can perform while shouldering the load. Now, Anisimova's run in the 2025 season was nothing short of spectacular, and that credit stands firm. She bounced back from a hiatus that nearly retired her, reinvented her style, and clawed her way up to world #3. That is an incredible feat, irrespective of the meltdown in Brisbane. Yet, this defeat forces us to ask the uncomfortable question. Is she truly prepared to be the American figurehead? Or was that hot streak just a mirage that inflated her standing beyond her mental fortitude? The hard truth is that legitimate superstars do not crash out in the second round of a 500-level event as the second seed immediately after peaking. The greats elevate their game when the lights get brighter. They feed on the pressure, validating their rank with dominance, whereas Anisimova did the exact opposite. She collapsed at the precise moment she needed to prove her status was real and not just a fleeting moment. Obviously, a single bad match does not write the obituary for a career, and Anisimova might well use this scar to forge a stronger armor. Perhaps it was simply a nightmare outing where nothing clicked. Maybe Kostyuk played the match of her life, leaving Anisimova helpless. But from the outside looking in, the image is disastrous. You grab the US #1 spot for about 5 minutes, strut into the next event as a favorite, and get swept off the court in straight sets without a fight. This is hardly the manifesto you pen when claiming the throne. The gulf between her and Gauff is glaring. As Anisimova crumbled beneath the Brisbane lights, Coco was scrapping for every point at the United Cup, battling through her own demons. Sure, Coco took a nasty spill against Buzas Monero, the kind of nightmare performance you burn from memory tape. Yet, she refused to let the wheels come off, rallying to dismantle top-tier rivals and drag her squad into the Final Four. This is the hallmark of true royalty. They never allow a single stumble to cascade into a catastrophe. They dust themselves off, lock back in, and stay in the fight. Consequently, Coco has reclaimed her perch atop the American ladder, with an opportunity to widen the gap if she continues her United Cup crusade. Conversely, Anisimova is packing her bags, leaving Australia with 0 silverware, a bruised ego, and a sliding leaderboard position. The women's tour hierarchy is famously unstable, a roller coaster where fortunes flip on a dime over a mere handful of events. However, there is a specific cruelty in finally scaling the mountain to snatch that domestic crown, only to instantly demonstrate that the heavy crown is far too weighty for your head. It forces us to question if Amanda's ascent was built on bedrock skill or merely a fleeting summer heatwave. Has she truly evolved into a podium contender, or did a sequence of lucky brackets and fortunate bounces artificially pump up her numbers? One defeat in Brisbane does not provide the final verdict. However, it certainly whispers skepticism. If you are truly vibrating at an elite frequency, you simply do not get dismantled in straight sets by Marta Kostyuk during the 3rd round of a tournament where you hold a marquee seed. Shifting gears to the main event, the vibes heading into Melbourne could not be more polarized for these two stars. Coco touches down as the Queen Bee once more, a role she wears like a comfortable jacket. She has navigated this pressure cooker previously, hoisting major trophies while shouldering the weight of a nation. She understands that her A-game is lethal, and her recent grit suggests the engine is purring nicely before the season's inaugural slam. Amanda, by contrast, limps into town following a gut-wrenching collapse that stripped her title and laid bare the cracks in her psychological armor. She is walking straight into a firing squad of inquiries regarding her nerve, the validity of her standing, and if she is genuinely prepared to hunt big game, or if she is merely a journeyman who caught lightning in a bottle. These whispers will haunt her locker room, and her rebuttal on the court will determine if 2025 was a renaissance or a blip. The brackets in Melbourne offer no sanctuary. Regardless of the seeding number, the road to the trophy is paved with broken glass for both women. Inevitably, a collision course with titans like Sabalenka or Swiatek looms on the horizon. Surviving such a gauntlet demands perfection, but in the majors, the battle is won between the ears. At this moment, Coco's headspace is undeniably clearer than Amanda's murky outlook. The most captivating element here is the sheer velocity at which the script gets rewritten in this sport. A mere week ago, we were singing praises of Amanda's resurrection and her coronation as America's finest. Pundits were waxing poetic about a new era and debating her viability as a perennial threat. Today, that ink is dry and the headline has soured. She is now the pretender who buckled under the crown's weight in 7 days. Coco has returned to her throne, while the gallery wonders if Amanda ever truly belonged in the court. Welcome to the tour, where your reputation is entirely dependent on yesterday's scoreboard. Prestige built over grueling months can evaporate in one sunny afternoon if you fail to deliver when the lights are brightest. The cruelest twist for Anisimova is that this defeat stripped her of more than just a digit next to her name. It robbed her of the vital tailwind needed to sail into the season's premier showcase. Brisbane was her stage to silence the doubters. Instead, she amplified the critics who claim she is not yet built for the altitude. Now she enters the lion's den knowing every lens is focused on her, waiting to see if she rebounds or begins a long, painful descent. In the other corner, Coco arrives, swaggering into Melbourne, bolstered by the reclaimed title and the quiet knowledge that she thrives in the fire that seemingly consumed her rival. Amanda's implosion didn't just hurt her, it gifted Coco Gauff the top spot without a fight, while broadcasting grave concerns regarding Amanda's ability to survive in the deep end. 7 days wearing the crown and she instantly fell apart. Real legends are built tougher. Believe the leaderboard exposes who truly possesses the nerve to survive? Smash that thumbs up and join us for raw, uncut tales from the court.